I want to start out with my daily take today from HartmannReport.com. Is Trumpism this generation's version of the new Confederacy? And I'll just tell you right up front, I think yes. I've been trying to figure out, Trumpism, is this Orbanism? Is this Putinism? Is this, is this the reinvention of something old, or is this something entirely new? Yesterday, Donald Trump retweeted over on his, or whatever the word is, on his Truth social media site. He promoted or liked or copied or whatever a message calling for a new civil war, a second civil war in the United States. And meanwhile, we've got now like Kathy Barnett running in Pennsylvania saying, without Trump's endorsement, saying I'm running without his endorsement, but I am running on Trumpism. And our media is going, what? Trumpism? And I'm telling you, it is the same thing as the old Confederacy. Trumpism asserts white supremacy. The old Confederacy was based on white supremacy. Trumpism fetishizes rule by a wealthy dictator. The old Confederacy was or a wealthy elite, excuse me. The old Confederacy was based on a wealthy elite. This was the result of the invention of the cotton gin in 1794. By 1810, 1820, cotton gins were the largest plantations across the South, all had cotton gins. One machine could do the work of 50 enslaved people. And what this did is it basically wiped out small businesses. It was the Walmartization of the South. All of the small cotton farms got wiped out by these large plantations, and the entire South got taken over by literally a couple thousand families who seized not only the economic power of the South, but also the political power of the South, and then converted the South into a police state, which I'll get to in just a second. But, it was this rule by a wealthy elite. The South, by 1840, the South was no longer even resembling anything like a democracy. Another, the Trump movement brands its movement with its own flag and its own slogans that are separate from America's. This is not something the Republican Party used to do. It's not something the Democratic Party used to do. But it is something the old Confederacy did. They had their own separate flags and songs and everything else. The Trumpism puts the rights of workers, or business rather, above those of workers. The Confederacy, of course, was based on slave labor. Trumpism marginalizes and destroys trust in media. The Confederacy actually shut down opposition newspapers. They lynched editors. They imprisoned some. Trumpism arms the movement's foot soldiers, the so-called militias. The Confederacy armed and then started a war. Trumpism wants to regulate school curriculum to promote a racist worldview. The old Confederacy 150 years ago, or actually longer than that, 170 years ago, the old Confederacy also preached white supremacy in schools. Trumpism embraces authoritarian preachers so that they can claim that they're based on Christianity. The old Confederacy claimed it was a Christian movement. Trumpism makes alliances with foreign dictators, like the Mohammed bin Salman, the head guy in Saudi Arabia, who just gave $2 trillion to Jared Kushner, or $1 billion and $1 billion to Steve Mnuchin. Well, the South tried to cut a deal with Napoleon when he was the emperor of France. The Trumpism is rigging elections and trying to prevent minorities from voting. The Confederacy did the same thing. Trumpism is embracing a police state, but will never prosecute very wealthy people. The same thing in the Confederacy. It turned into a police state for everybody except the plantation owners. Trumpism accuses its political opponents of demonic and perverse behavior, drinking the blood of Christian children and stuff like that. The Confederacy had very, very similar weird stories that mostly had to do with interracial sex, but still, it was they were accusing their white opponents of bizarre behavior, perverse behavior in their worldview, in their language. Trumpism wants to criminalize abortion. The Confederacy vigorously enforced anti-abortion laws when white women got pregnant. Trumpism wants to heavily criminalize minor behaviors like drug use and abuse. The old Confederacy heavily criminalized, for example, loitering. Loitering became like a major crime across the South. So, you know, they had all these crimes that if anybody just was speaking up against the Confederacy, boom, they had a way to throw you in jail. Trumpism has normalized violence as a tool of politics. So did the old Confederacy. Trumpism opposes worker organizing efforts. The old Confederacy would not tolerate unions. Trumpism claims the mantle of the average man fighting against the tyranny of the state. The Confederacy had this whole mythology about we're the average guy trying to fight, you know, when actually it wasn't. It was the oligarchs who ran the plantations. Trumpism wants to make it all hard for everybody except wealthy people to get a decent education, whether it's, you know, private elementary schools, charter schools, or whether it's college and debt. The old Confederacy wouldn't even, you know, basically, you know, shut down public schools. Trumpism wants to minimize government regulation of working conditions and products. The old Confederacy, slavery was not exactly a regulated, you know, labor thing. And Trumpism is trying to establish a mythology of victimhood and a fear of replacement. And the old Confederacy had, you know, this whole lost cause thing. I mean, I don't see how they're not identical. Am I missing something here? Why is nobody calling this out and pointing out that Trumpism, which has now seized the Republican Party, that the entire Republican Party, you know, there's still a few outliers, the Mitt Romneys and Liz Cheneys out there who actually, you know, want to use like the American flag instead of the Trump flag. But by and large, the Republican Party has become the Confederacy. And frankly, I think our media needs to wake the hell up. The American people and the Democratic Party need to see this Trumpist Republican Party for the threat it is. The FBI and our intelligence agencies need to be bringing these seditionists to the ground. Democrats have to loudly call out the racism and fascism and point out where this will lead if it's unchecked. After all, where did the Confederacy lead? To a civil war, as Trump just suggested yesterday. Every day that goes by without action brings us closer to this new Republican Party's goal, which is tearing apart democracy in America and transforming this country into this generation's version of the Confederacy, complete with its own lost cause mythology. In this case, it's the lost election mythology. Tell me I'm missing something here. Or is this simply the old Confederacy rising again?